Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sledgehammers in the Office podcast, where we celebrate the heavy hitters on the job site and in the office. This is the part where I'd usually say Mason is here with me, but he unfortunately had a family thing. But we are super excited to have an interior designer with us this evening with over 15 years in the industry, the fantastic Stephanie Stuart. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we love to jump right in with what is your previous work experience? What are you doing now? And kind of a little bit of the story that brought you to that point.
Okay, well, just go straight for it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so my current business is Stuart Design Co. So I am the principal interior designer, and I went to college for interior design. I went to San Francisco State. And I wasn't always going to be an interior design major. This was back in the day. I'm going to date myself here, but my original major was actually computer science.
Okay.
And this is way back in '99. I used to live in California back when the dot-com crash was. And so it was '99, and I was going to computer science, and I'm like, there's no future in computers. I'm out. This is ridiculous. So anyways, after spending, a few semesters up all night looking for semicolons and hashtags and all the fun things that you do when you're a programmer, I decided to switch gears to interior design. And the very first class that I took, my teacher actually specialized in senior living design. And so it was just a short little blurb that she taught in addition to the color theory class. And I thought that it was really interesting because it's kind of scientific. There's this, you have to kind of mesh between residential design and also the technical aspects of medical. So anyway, fast forward, I switched gears, changed my major, and then I go to school for interior design. My first internship out of school or in school was for a senior living interior design firm, right? So anyway, it's just a theme that's reoccurring, in my story. But right now, we do commercial and residential, and just a little bit of everything. So I've had the pleasure of specializing in senior living design, working on multifamily housing projects, working on hotel projects, high-end residential, 10,000, 20,000 square feet. And just having, all of that experience. So when I, do work, I kind of have all this background. So it's nice for my business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at what point did you start your own business?
I started my own business 7 years ago, so whatever that math is, and
2017?
2017, yes. So 2017, I was moving from Utah to California, and it was kind of just a nice opportunity to, okay, I'm going to leave, you're going to change jobs anyway. So I was like, okay, this is time I'm going to start my own business. So at that time, I really highly specialized in commercial projects and was working for just again doing commercial projects for my own firm, and that's how we got started in California.
Super cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I do want to save a lot of kind of more of the business side for the back half of the podcast, but I am curious as far as when you moved to a new state, and which I guess you started in California, left and came back.
When
you were in college.
In California. So I was in college in California, moved to Utah, lived there for 10 years working in the industry, and then went back to California for a short time.
So then you're having to establish all the contacts then on that side by yourself. How did you go about saying like, hey,
I'm here, right? So it kind of is, for me, it's always been kind of organic, and I've always kind of, ran it that way. But it did take, quite a few months. I would want to say maybe even 18 months it took for, me to really start getting, some good jobs. What I did while I was transitioning and when I started is I worked for a manufacturing company, and I was then working remote, finishing up projects from Utah. So I had 3-month kind of gig with them to be a contract worker. Then after that, then they asked me, somebody was going on maternity leave from their company in that region in Northern California. And they're like, we need you for 90 days. This is a specific product, this is, we were doing resin panels. And so it's highly specialized. So then I had another 3 months of a kind of a contract gig that was solid, so that gave me 6 months, right?
Yep.
Well, again, 3 months later, their Southern California rep had, was switching gears. So I did the same thing for 3 months. So that gave me 9 months to be a contractor for this other company, keeping my cash flow going and getting started in the business. What I was doing during that time is I was making contacts by being a rep through that company, right? Just being out in the industry and being knowing having a pulse on the industry, right? And just knowing people and meeting people and seeing where things were being built, and kind of in that respect. And then I also did things like I joined Toastmasters. Have you ever heard of Toastmasters?
No.
It's super geeky. Okay, I have to tell everyone I love Toastmasters. I'm a big nerd at heart, but it's kind of like speech club. So you go and you learn how to be a better public speaker. And I luckily got tied into this group that met at a chamber of commerce. And so there were a bunch of entrepreneurs there. And I just started getting jobs through there. So I would get up, I was nervous, I'd give my 8-second speech, and not want to do anything and have it be awful. And then everyone would see me vulnerable, real, and then months and months later go by. And then this one is remodeling her house. Hey, Stephanie, we need an interior designer. This one is doing a boutique hotel, so I get to design a 30-room inn, in wine country in California. And
that's pretty cool.
And from that job, I got to meet the architect. So I go and meet her architect. And on my first job, I say something about senior living. He says, "We have a senior living project, and they don't have a designer. Let me go get you the plans. Let's talk about it." Okay. So, just like that.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting too that you've got such a broad range in that, because usually you see people they're going to be more residential, commercial, and then I didn't know about the senior living side of it until we talked together.
Right.
And so what's the biggest differences you see in between the three of those?
Well, the interesting thing is that I would say senior living is the intersection between both.
Okay.
So commercial design, I love, love, love commercial design for so many reasons. You have a specific client that is maybe a demographic or a ROI, or if you're in multifamily housing, you're trying to rent to a certain group of people, right? Who lives here? It's young families, because we're right next to all these tech companies.
Yep.
We need an office as an extra room instead of a nursery, right? How do you set this up? The next one, so that's, commercial. You have a very specific client, you have, and you're working toward your tight budgets, your deadlines, when you need to open,
Yep.
And then you have to tailor your, all of the materials to commercial grade products, the furnishings to commercial grade products. But it's really kind of more of a machine, and I like that aspect. I'm a spreadsheet girl. I'm a project manager at heart, and so it's really structured, and I love that. And then I get to bring in the fun with being fun, number one, but also doing a fun design and saying, no, the people that are going to live here want this, know what they want, because I know this demographic.
We had some technical difficulties, but we're back. So we were talking about the difference between the different commercial, the senior living, and then the residential on the design. So I think we were at the residential part of the design.
So commercial is very structured, and I love that about commercial. And you have a clear focus and a goal and an end game, right? Residential is very different. It's very emotional. People get very, very emotional about their design, and it's understandable because they've saved money. This may be the first time they've done it, or it's just really important to them, right? They're going to be there living in it day in, day out, and so it's more than just an end game. And so that different aspect can be challenging because people also have trouble making decisions. I have trouble making decisions for my own personal design because I want a lot of things and I only have, so much space to do it. That's why I'm so fortunate to do this for my work, because every design for me is different, and it's like I've run out of space in my own house. I mean, I bring home chairs all the time. My husband and my kids are like, "Mom, you got another chair." And I'm like, "Yes, isn't it great?" And they're like, "Where are you going to put it?" And I'm like, "I don't know." It's just, I just love different things. So anyway, but I ran my own room, but residential is that way. So it has its pros and cons where, you can really be making a huge impact on somebody's life, how they live. I keep reading these business books and, and there's always like one kind of little hint on, you dress for the job you want or, whatever. And then there's always one little part that's like, fix up your space, organize it, get clear on what who you want to be, show up in your space that way. And I'm like, it's a big deal. Do you want to have people over to your house? And are you not having people over because you're embarrassed of stuff?
Right.
fix something.
Yep.
You can't get in that little cabinet in the corner because the hinge has been broken. Fix it.
Yep.
It's not hard, but it's going to change your life because now you have a whole nother 30 inches of space to put away the stuff that's falling out of the other cabinets.
Yep.
And now you can easily make your protein shake in the morning and get out of there. And now you're on time to work.
Yep.
Right? So that's how I really think about residential design, is a lot of education for people to say, this is important because it needs to really function differently.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of education in residential. That's how I would say. Also, the timelines change a lot. People aren't available, start stops because of budgets, some of those challenges with residential. But then you marry them together with senior living, which sounds weird. People really don't understand the senior living design, area, the space. And people they want their loved ones, or they want to live in the space as a residential space, but it needs to function as a medical space.
Right.
And one story that I like to tell is how that impacts even the employees at maybe even a retirement active community. So you have this activity room, and say that no one is ever coming to, the things that the activities coordinator has scheduled. And they're like, okay, now these people aren't coming out of their rooms, they're isolated, they're not doing the activities, that's changing their lifestyle, right? And then this activity coordinator, gets let go or whatever, they bring in a new one, same thing happens. They're like, why isn't anyone coming to our activities? You know why? Because the room is dark. Because the furniture is too soft and low to the ground, and so no one can get out of it. And so people don't want to come into the space because they can't be there comfortably, and they don't want to struggle. But maybe they barely even know that. Maybe they're just like, I don't like going in there, it's not right, whatever. And then
subconsciously something doesn't feel right.
And it's this huge ecosystem. So that's, kind of why senior living kind of has a special place in my heart, because it's very technical in that way, and you want to make it look good like residential, but they're all just so different. That's why they say, oh, specialize in something. I'm like, I specialize in all of them. I'm good at all of them because I can put on that hat, and I want to, so that's what I think.
Super cool. I do want to dive a little bit more into the residential, because obviously that's the side that I'm on more often. Before we get into what the trends are and how we're seeing those change, I did want to ask, because this is something we had even talked about beforehand, was the difference of finishes that we provide to a homeowner.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you can be like, all right, I've got this lighted mirror and it's going to be $1,000, and they're going to be like, oh, they go on Amazon, they come back, and I've got the $100 lighted mirror. And it's like, how do you work with clients even just to be able to say, hey, here's the difference between the $100 and the $1,000. The $100 is probably wrong. That's more like probably $250, $500, whatever.
Sure,
it is. But
we get the point.
It's a good difference.
Yeah.
And then when you do have someone who has a specific budget that they're trying to work in, what's your approach with those kind of customers?
So 2 things. We can start with the person that has a specific budget. Is that the truth of it is, interior design is a luxury service, and not everyone can afford interior design, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone can afford to go to, a resort that's $1,200 a night. I can't. I mean, that's shocking. I don't know what they do there. It's probably amazing. One day, it'll happen. I was looking at the hot springs, and it's like, I want to be there. So, but the truth is, it's not for everybody, right? And some people want to be hands-on, and they don't even want to hand that off to somebody. But if somebody has a lower budget, what I like to do is be really transparent about it. And I used to offer some other services that would, serve those clients, but it, in the end, would come out that it really didn't serve them, because it's the education piece, right? Like I would be specifying something that was lower, that was a lower product because that would fit their budget better, but then they wouldn't be happy in the end with it, right? And it was coming from my professional recommendation.
Yep.
So what we've done is, and it should be launched by the time that this podcast come out, but we've created these packages. And what we're going to do is put together these finished packages. For example, a bathroom. There's a lot of homes here, especially in Arizona, that is a 5x8, a 5-foot by 8-foot bathroom. It's got, it's a 5-piece, right? It's got a shower, it's got a tub, it's got a toilet, it's got a sink, whatever. And what's the 5th piece? Why do they call it a 5-piece? Don't they call it a 5-piece?
I honestly haven't heard
No,
it called a
okay, all
5
right.
piece,
Maybe
but
that's an old fashioned. Maybe
it
I'm.
also might be something in the designer world where us hammer
Okay.
swingers are just like, tell me where do you want me to put it?
Right, right. So what we've done is we have really tried to help the homeowner that doesn't, number one, that can't afford a interior design service and maybe doesn't have the time or even really care for that professional personalized service, but they do want not professional, the personalized service, but they do want a professional eye because they don't have any idea what to put together.
Right.
So these packages, we'll take the bathroom for example, have the details that the contractor needs to be able to price it out, and so that the client doesn't have to go stand at Home Depot or stand at Floor and Decor and just freak out over all the decisions to be made.
Because there's so many people that don't know what goes with what's going to look awkward if you put it in there,
Right.
stuff like that.
And the other things are a large format tile. Large format tile. Everybody loves it. They're so great. Well, do you know what? It's going to cost you more to install it. You know this. You tell me. Like, go ahead. Like, tell the people. About. So say I specify large format tile. What does that mean to you as an installer?
On right off the bat, your materials are going to be roughly the same for the most part, but it's the install cost. You can jump it up by a couple dollars a square foot right away.
Yep.
And if you're doing a smaller space, not a huge deal. But if you start saying, hey, we're doing a kitchen and we're starting to get into the rest of the house, your square footage adds up so quickly.
Right.
So that install price adds up so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the flooring can be one of the most expensive things in a remodel project.
100%. And that's one of the things that we start with is the flooring because it's one of the most important things, and that's where we jump off the design. So it makes sense, it's the amount of square footage and it's one of the most important things.
Yep.
And large format tile, the other thing that I think people don't understand is that the risk that comes in for the installer, one of the reasons why the cost goes up is because of the risk. You've got to buy more extra tile than maybe you would have on another one because it's easier to get broken. The handling of it's heavier. You need
Yep.
two guys or whatever, right? So
going around any door jams, any corners becomes a lot more difficult.
So many more cuts.
Yep.
Just like if I specify, and I do this all the time, I'm so sorry to everybody, but a hexagon or another.
They look fantastic.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful. And there's so many more cuts, and so there you go, 20%
Yep.
more on your install cost or whatever, I don't know.
Yep.
So I put together these packages that have the information. It tells you where to get it. It's not just a picture off Pinterest. It's like here's the rendering of it, and this is the stone that you're going to get at Arizona Tile. This is the tile you're going to get for the floor, the shower floor, the walls, the niche, the backsplash, all the different things. But it says actually what it is. It's not
Yep.
just a picture of it. So that's what we're doing now to help our clients that have a lower budget that maybe can't, that aren't in the market for the full service. And then what was your other question for me? I just talked a lot.
Let me see.
It was how do you manage lower
the
budgets?
difference
Oh,
between,
materials.
Yep.
That's the difference between materials. Okay. I love your lighted mirror example because lighting is one of the biggest things, and plumbing, but I could go there in a minute, that you can't see the difference, but it's not UL listed, right? UL means, what is it? It's rated, right? It's got a certification. And some electricians won't even install lighting that's not UL. So if you're going to Wayfair or Amazon or, and getting your lighting, if you're a homeowner or, Susie Smith, she might not know that she needs to find a rated light fixture. And so she just buys all of this stuff. And then she's got in her garage sitting there for all of these chandeliers and light fixtures. The contractor comes over to install and he says, no, this is going to wreck my license. I can't legally install this with, protect myself insurance wise. And I can't install this. Can you return it? I don't know. How long?
As long as it was close enough to the purchase date. If you held on to it too long, it's been in your garage and they won't take it back. Been there, done that.
Exactly. But if I'm purchasing, the decorative lighting, which is one of the things that we do for our clients, I use my trade vendors that I have relationships with, and I know those timelines, and I purchase it close to the time of the install. Or if we're getting past any kind of dates, I have a relationship with the vendor that I can say, hey, we're getting close. They're not able to install yet. Can we, if anything goes wrong, still return?
Yep.
Right? And so that's the difference in materials. Number one is the relationships that we form with the people. But number two is that we know what we're looking at. We're not looking at pictures. We know hardware, right?
Yeah.
So hardware, plumbing. You don't know why one of them's 1,000 and the other one's 200. Well, it's because the inside of the 200 one is plastic and the other one's copper, right?
Yep.
And the finish on it.
Yep.
How many people have doorknobs from whatever your oil rub bronze was cool that are all rubbed off because it's brass?
Yep.
Well, why is that? It's because it wasn't painted with electrostatic painting or whatever. It was just a cheaply applied finish.
Yep.
So that's the difference in what you're buying.
Yep.
So anyway.
And a lot of times I see on my end, it's the quality that can be the hardest part to sell, because you can't always quantify how much of a quality change you have compared to they can clearly see we jumped this amount of dollars
Right.
and how much it was. And it's like part of our job also as professionals is like, hey, if we put it in and it breaks in 3 months, you're going to look at the two of us and go, y'all are just messing with me, right?
Right.
And it's like, ooh, that's not a good look, because you're not going to tell your friends, and now it's a whole problem all around.
Well, and that's why I like to form relationships with contractors and installers, is because we can both have that conversation together. You know, like these clients, they really, really can't, they really, really can't get there on the lighting budget. And we know that this one's going to be, lower quality. Do you know a better one that's in their budget? Or, and can we both have a conversation like, is this really where you want to save your money?
Yep.
Can we change the tile instead?
Yep. The other thing too I see is that the trades is a huge trust game. So sometimes it's even having a third party, whether that's the contractor saying something and then the designer can verify it, because the homeowner can go be like, hey, this is what the other guy's telling me. And then sometimes it's even the other way around. It's like, hey, the designer really wants us to get this thing. And it's like, yeah, you should probably go with it, because honestly, here's X, Y, and Z, Y. And so they get that double verification, build the trust all the way around, and you go from there.
I love it. And if I'm specifying something that's out of budget, you can come to me and be like, Stephanie, come on. Like, it's beautiful, but like, come on. And be like, okay, maybe we're going to rob Peter to pay Paul and switch up the line items, but maybe that's not the space, right? And so we work together because we're here to, serve the client.
Yep. And sometimes even there's concessions that can be made on the one line item where it's like, all right, this is a good project. We'll take a concession here. And we know that everything's going to be all right in the end.
Right. So we make those decisions together to, help out the best interest of the project.
Yeah,
for sure.
Did want to talk about design specifically in terms of what we're seeing, because we had the white gray phase that was boring, got very bright and very repetitive, but everyone did it.
Yeah.
And then it seemed like we started seeing a lot more color introduced recently. We've got the last 4 kitchens that I've done have had some sort of navy cabinets in them.
Nice.
Some kind of combination with that. Orange and navy, white and navy, cream and
perfect.
Anything that they can do. But usually when something starts becoming a trend, it means the next trend is around the corner. What do you feel like we're seeing on the horizon, or are we still on the early stages of introducing a lot more of the blues and the greens that we're still settling into that being more common?
We are still on the color trend. I mean, we're at the beginning phases. If you look at what's happening in the retail market with furnishings, is that some retailers are bringing out more colorful stuff. And so my vibe, as is color, right? That's what we do, and we make one promise to our clients, and it's there will be wallpaper. Okay, and so there will be wallpaper.
We're bringing the dinosaurs out of extinction and saying, hey, we need these wallpaper installers back.
They're out there, right? Like if you go into, I don't know if you, one of a country club here, Lifetime Fitness is here in Arizona, right? And you walk in there, I walked in there and I go, this is for me, because there's not a single blank drywall anywhere. It's tile walls, it's wall covering, it's wall protection, it's it's insane. It's beautiful, right? It's like a high-end hotel or, a casino or, these hospitality spaces because it's always been here. But what's happening now is people are embracing more pattern, I would say. And there was a tile pattern phase that people were getting a little comfortable doing I'll do it on my powder bath floor, and, and I would push them and say, okay, well, why don't we do it on the floor and then go up the back wall, and make it, just have a little bit more fun with it. But I have done, even over the past few years when people were still on color, they come to me and they ask for a white kitchen and they don't get a white kitchen, but they approved not the white kitchen because they think they want it. So I say, okay, well, here's the white backsplash that you really like, that you asked for. And then I pull out and I say, but here's cobalt blue. What do you think about this? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, yes. Right. So we just did a kitchen. They asked for a white kitchen and the client has a lot of black and white. And so I had a black and white pattern tile and it was nowhere in her purview. And she decided to do it. We did it on the dining room buffet side and it looks amazing. And she is so happy, but giving those people a little bit of a nudge. So I would say color pattern, some of the standard retail manufacturers of furnishings are starting to come out with their own wall covering lines. And so that's really, really reinforcing that wall covering piece. But it's wall covering. It's not your grandma's wall covering. I mean, It's not gold lame or, it's not fuzzy or, weird. You can go old school with it, but there's so many patterns and styles. And with printing being what it is now, it's amazing. That's another thing though to caution people on wall covering though is not all wall covering is created equal. And with my commercial background, we used a lot of vinyl. Type 2 vinyl is what you're required to use in commercial spaces, and it's cleanable, it's thick, the wall doesn't have to be as smooth, it's easy to install for a professional installer, on and on and on. If you just go buy it off Etsy and you get maybe a peel and stick vinyl, it's not going to go over your orange peel walls. So anyway, do your wallpaper, but do it right. Consult a designer. But what do you think about wallpaper?
I like it. At first, same thing. I had the preconception of we're tearing wallpaper out. Like this is something we see in houses that are 70s, 60s, but it's a lot different. I love how the amount of patterns on there and then the variation you can create. Because like you said, with the printing, you can get something that is a lot more custom on there. And it makes it work. If you wanted to do that in paint, you're having an artist come in, spend all that time in labor to get that done. And it doesn't make sense when you can do it at a lot larger of a scale so much quicker. Yes, wallpaper it's expensive per square foot to cover up a wall. But it's when we're still comparing. Do you want an artist to come in and give you a mural that's going to cost way more? Like, let's go with the wallpaper.
Exactly. And you can watch the wallpaper, right? It's even kid friendly, right? You get some vinyl, type 2 vinyl, some thick stuff and, go for it. So
cool. The other thing too, I am happy that we're doing with wallpaper is we're getting away just from the minimalism. There's a part of me that likes it. I love the straight lines. I like just the order of everything. But at the same time too, it's like I feel like we peeled everything away to where even on some of the backsplashes, just introducing a little bit of it, you're like, oh wow, okay. Like and you see that in the wallpaper, in even some of the hardware selections. I feel like it's a hit or miss right now for me, but the gold that some people are doing, not the 90s, 2000 gold, but I kind of like it just because it's different. So
it's kind of matte, it's champagne, it's maybe brushed, it's just really nice. I don't know, it's just beautiful. The metals that are coming out.
How have you seen a lot of I'd say plumbing and electrical finishes changing? Because for me, this is one where I don't know if it's observation bias, where I started to go looking for it, but I'm kind of the opinion that it's something in the last couple of years that we've seen. It's like, all right, standard outlets, standard faucet, and now the designs are getting different. They're a lot more unique. Some of the capabilities on the electronic side is a lot cooler with how they're embedding it in drywall, the different uses, stuff like that. So what have you seen on your side? Because you're in it a lot more than I am.
Right. So I would say that people are I feel like people are looking for something new and different, and they want something that's a little bit unique. I think that the home automation is really cool. It's been going on for a long time, but it hasn't been as accessible.
Yes.
And it's still not super accessible, but with the, I would say accessibility of like the Philip light bulbs, like you can control the LED on those, you can dim them from your phone instead of having to automate your whole house. You can get window shades and just do one, right? Yep. And you don't have to wire up the whole house. And so when I say accessibility, I mean like that. It might be still, somewhat expensive, but it's less expensive because you don't have to do it all. You do those prime, hard-hitting spaces that are going to make an impact. And
we're comparing that also to a whole home automation, like you said, where that's going to take a dedicated data cabinet inside someone's house where we're running Cat 6 everywhere to get everything to work perfectly, and that's even another trade on top of it.
Totally.
So it's more expensive just to do like your simple automation where it's like Alexa or whatever you want to do, but it's like if we're talking real automation, we're jumping like it can be $100,000 very quickly.
Right. You just go. It's like light years ahead. It's exponential growth from there. It's not onesie twosie. So the automation I think is really cool, and we're seeing a lot more of that. Also with, I don't know if this is new or not, but it's just come into my space. Is like, where you put the outlet and it's just like one outlet. You don't have to like wire it up. What is that? Or like the light switch, like it's
the radio switches.
What is that?
From what I understand, they work off of, it's more of a radio frequency.
Okay.
So they have a controller in the light fixture. So just like you would have a remote on a fan, and you can turn it on and off, they'll have those in the lights themselves. So instead of having to say like, we have the light in the ceiling, if I wanted to put a switch right here, I would have to hardwire over.
Right.
But instead, it's a control module. If there's one existing, you put it up there with the unit, and then it just is controlled off of there.
Right.
One of the big concerns used to be that it's like, well, when the battery goes out, it's like, that's going to be a pain in the butt.
Right.
For the most part, the batteries are lasting a long time. The analogy I was given is it's like the key fob you have. It's like, how often are you changing out the battery on that? Once every 10 plus years.
Right.
So, and since that is the point of contention, they're making it easy as well as far as like, all right, let's do the simple watch batteries. So order it off of Amazon, stop by the grocery store on your way home, you can pop it back in, all that good stuff.
Right. So things like that I think are really cool. Also going into design-wise, style is not having just plain switches, but like getting cool like brass ones. Like we went to, I went to Europe over the summer and went to a few different countries, and I just started like really paying attention. I'm like, are these like just old? Like, are these old, right? But they're not. They're cool, So it's like they're modern versions of something that you think might have been old, And so
is it the toggles?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's there? I don't know. I'm just like speechless over them. I just think that they're amazing, and I don't know, just so much fun. So just paying attention to what is old but remade, because I'm a maximalist. I just can't get behind the minimalist thing. My husband's a minimalist. You should see our offices. It's hilarious. I did get wallpaper in his office.
Okay.
So he does have wallpaper, but it's completely different than my wallpaper. And I mean, they're just like two different worlds walking into those offices. But so anyway, anything ornate, cool, different, that's the direction I'm headed.
Yeah. So. Have you seen the Adorn collection from LeGrand?
No.
Okay. I've got a couple in my shop. I'll have to go grab them and show you. I actually had to yank a GFI out of my hall bathroom because it was the one I ordered was not going to show up in time, and it was the right color for my customer's house, so I need to replace that GFI.
That's awesome. But that's dedication.
Yeah. But they're a lot more square. They've got a different look to them. It's same thing. So I'll show you after. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's just so many opportunities in the I don't know, in the finishes, and that kind of stuff. So we're just trying to take as many as we can.
Yeah. I love everything that they're doing with the lighting. That for me especially is like plumbing, and they're trying to add electronics to plumbing, and I'm like, ooh, this is a problem.
Well, it's even hard to use the faucets that are like automated. It's like someone turns it on and someone turns it off, and you're like, maybe if you live alone and like, I don't know, or you have someone that does dishes and you think that's cool for them. I don't know, but we go to my mother-in-law's house and she has it, and I'm like, this would be cool if I was used to it, but I don't know. It's kind of like the fridge that tells you the list. It doesn't know how empty my mayonnaise is, does it? Only mom knows that, really.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I don't know.
This one I had because I've seen it pop up a couple times, but how do you set boundaries with friends and customers on the scope? Because every once in a while, customers, I feel like it's a little easier in terms of with a contract, things like that. But every once in a while, you'll have that one customer who's like, hey, like, could I get a little bit more out of it? But especially, I know on the design side, there's people where it's like, hey, what do you think about my house? And what should I do to it? It's like, and I know for it'd be like someone asking me, can you just come start hooking stuff up at my house? But people don't realize it because they think we're just friends.
Right,
so
right.
How do you approach a lot of the people that start asking things where it's like, hey, there's a difference between work and friendship.
Right. Well, I haven't, luckily, I don't think off the top of my head, had to, draw a really hard line like that.
Cool, then I do have some color. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. I was wondering when it was coming. No, but I was like, I'm trying to think now that you asked that question, but I do charge for consultations even for my friends. I mean, if I'm at somebody's house and they're asking me, for advice, I'm happy to give it because I like to give everyone advice and tell them what to do. So it's kind of fun for me too. But I haven't had anybody, like fully take advantage of it. I will, if my friends call me and say, hey, I'm between these two shade colors and, I'm at the window treatment store, I'm like, shoot them back a text or, I can help you later, or, whatever. So I honestly haven't had that, but I do start my projects with a consultation. Everybody has a consultation, whether they're friends or not, and they pay the full $525 for an hour and a half consultation. And so I think that really sets the groundwork that, this is our business relationship.
Yep.
And so I like that. The other thing is, if they don't hire me for anything more than the hour and a half consultation, or, if they need some, a bunch of work, it's okay. It's not like I'm not going to talk to them anymore.
Right.
It's like we're all adults, we're grown-ups, right? Like, just if you bid a job someone and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to do that right now, or,
I had some friends from my church group. This happened within the last week, and they wanted to do something with their laundry room and their garage, and it wasn't super big or anything like that, but I got it prepared, sent the estimate to them, and then they called me, and it was the husband, and he's like, all right, I'm going to conference call on my wife. And they're like, yeah, it's a little high for our, like, what we're looking at right now.
Right.
Do you think, like, we can make some adjustments? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we really appreciate your work. Like, we don't want it. And I'm like, no. This is what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And you could almost hear, like, the deep breath on the other side of the phone where they thought
Yeah.
they were going to offend me. And I'm like, no, like, this is what we're supposed to do.
Like, this is how it starts, right? This is a negotiation, and it's a scope conversation.
Yes, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to, cut my price by half because, you're not talking me into not feeding my family this month.
Right.
We're going to say, okay, let's phase it. So the best way to phase it is to do all the electrical first, or, we're just going to do the laundry room because that's more important right now. And that's how you're going to have that conversation.
And that's what we're doing.
And that's what you're doing. Are you?
Yeah.
See? Okay. Good job, Stephanie. So, we're all professionals, and it has to be that way.
Yep.
If you, especially if you're running a business, and it is a lot of work to put together a proposal, but you have to start somewhere, and people don't know how much it costs. They just really don't.
Yep.
So anyway, you got to tell them.
Yeah.
Just like you did a bid for me, and you said, do you want me to include we're demoing some millwork, and you said, do you want me to include the baseboard in case we need to do any baseboard? And I'm like, I never even thought of that. Like, thanks, and it's like, I feel like really confident on the construction or remodel side because of my background with the new construction and the commercial projects. But, people don't know. I didn't think of the baseboard. Dang it. I'll think of the baseboard next time. But thank you for that, Yeah.
So that's always the relationship, just working together.
Yeah. So you gotta start somewhere and then let negotiate the scope and go from there.
Yeah. What makes a good supplier, especially when you're trying to get some of these high-end finishes in some of these homes? It's especially like you said, you've worked on a 10,000 square foot, 20,000 square foot. It's like those budgets. I love those budgets because it becomes a lot of fun that they're going to do some crazy things and stuff like that. But then you need to go source all the things that they're trying to get, or they have the inspiration that you're trying to bring to life. So what makes a good partner on the supply side for the materials, things like that you try and look for?
I look for quality sales reps, honestly, because they know what is going on in their business. Sometimes, sales reps will say, "Hey, we carry this, but that's really not the right choice. It's going to be discontinued soon, and your project timeline is 18 to 24 months. So we'll just keep that one out, right?"
Yeah.
And uh, obviously, that's the right choice because you doing reselections when you actually get to the ordering desk it's just a snowball effect of which white, oh, which white is that, which white is this, and oh, now did that have a vein going through it, and what is it, beige or is it gray, and so anyway, you get to this challenge. So having a good sales rep and somebody who's honest, right, that would say, hey, don't spec that, I know it's gonna, whatever. Then also having somebody that well, that has good products clearly, and that's doing good design, but that does it does partner with you, so in all aspects of it, that is going to be available, maybe even locally, or that does a fair amount of work that's easy to work with here in Arizona or wherever you locally building. So, example, I was working on a project during COVID. I used to live in Utah, like I said. I was working with a builder over there, and the vacation home was in Utah, and the client was here in Arizona. So it was kind of serendipitous. He's like, "Hey, Stephanie, we need a designer. I'm over here, you're over there, and she's over there. Great." So I was able to use like Arizona Tile, for instance. Arizona Tile has, a truck that goes back and forth. We were able to find her slabs here that we knew could get up to Utah, easily, or Bedrosians, just
Yep.
some of these things that kind of work between they're in Utah and they're also in Arizona. And so for those projects, it was really helpful. And so I think knowing what's available where you're going, sure, if your client is importing stuff from Italy, call me, Stuart Design Co, Stuart, DESIGNCO.com, whatever. But, and they don't care. But I would say, the mainstream projects, even somebody with building a $10,000 house, they have a budget, so where can you get the stuff?
Right.
So I think knowing what you're sourcing is really, really important.
How often do you try and check back with them, or do the sales reps try and keep you updated as far as like, hey, we're getting something new in, or we saw this at a different project, it's unique? Do they send that over to you? Is that something that you try and keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on? How does that work?
I do so many different types of projects, honestly, that it's something different all the time. So I'm usually reaching out to them. I mean, I'm on, all the newsletters and, staying up to date with that. And I go to industry events and, I'm getting their invitations to, see what's new and to go into showrooms and things. But when I have a specific project, I mean, I was thinking about it the other day and I'm like, I don't have uh like I don't have like a go-to tile or a go-to fabric. It just doesn't exist in my space. I'm a maximalist, like I said. We do color, we do all the things in all the places. Not everybody wants that, but it's going to be different every time. So I generally go to my reps and say, this is what I'm working on. Here's my mood board. Here's my concept presentation to the client. How can we source your product?
Yeah.
So that's how it works for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, I did want to transition a little bit as we get towards the end of the podcast and talk a little bit specifically about the business and kind of what goes on behind the scenes, because a lot of times it's when you own your own business, there's work, and then there's the work that you don't get paid for. That's equally as important.
Right. So, but are we going to do a chocolate milk commercial, or you're going to skip it today?
I was going to skip it. Usually for the guests, we skip it.
Oh, okay. All right. I told my son, he's like, I don't know. I don't know if I was watching one of them or something, and he's like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's chocolate milk. They like chocolate milk. And he's like, that's funny. And he's 12, he was like dying over it. So anyway, I just have to tell you, he's like, that's the chocolate milk that we have at our school, for school lunches. Anyway.
The only one anyone should get.
Okay, sorry, business.
Well,
boring.
Real quick, before we move on, when I talked to Stephanie about coming on the podcast, and I said, hey, usually we grab drinks for people when they're coming on the podcast. Like, what do you want? It could be water. We have had people who get like an alcoholic beverage, like a bourbon or whatever. She's like, and I told her I get chocolate milk, and she just replies with, what kind? Because they're not all made equal. And I'm like, this is someone who knows a thing or two about chocolate milk.
It's all in the details, Yeah, so.
And Shamrock Farms nailed the detail.
I love it. I was going to bring you one, whatever. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, business, boring. Sorry. I'm not trying to avoid it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
fun is my thing.
So we did talk a little bit about how you acquired the customers in California.
Mhm.
Has a lot of that looked the same here as far as through networking groups and then word of mouth? I know that you mentioned the Utah project had crossover to
Mhm.
here in Arizona, but
Right.
that's one project.
Right.
What has the lead acquisition looked like for you here?
Well, it was a little bit different and, honestly challenging for me because I did move here right before COVID. We literally bought our house in December of 2019, renovated, and as we know, March 2020 was when COVID hit. But we moved here like March 13th of 2020, and the state shut down on the 15th. Okay, and so my, just full transparency, my plan was going to be to move here and to transition the company to focus on senior living. And we've talked about it a number of times, but to do senior living. Well, as we know, during COVID, that wasn't really the conversation to be had. In senior living communities. However, that I did stay busy from my projects in California, my projects in Utah, and it's taken a little bit. So I was not able to get immersed in the culture here with the vendors. Nobody had meetings. Nobody was, doing things, networking on Zoom's not the same.
Yeah.
I really am an in-person person. And, even when you reached out to me or we first met, I was like, do you want to have a Zoom call or coffee? And I'm like, we're going to coffee. Like, we didn't have Zoom calls. So it took me a little bit more time to get immersed here in Arizona. Luckily, I did have connections from, Utah and California, and I was still working during the pandemic. But so it still took me, I would say about 18 months to, turn over here into, getting into the Arizona market, but it is word of mouth. And realtors are a really great, partner for me, and also architects, but mainly, people trust their realtors. And when they move somewhere, they don't know anybody, and so they're like, okay, who do you use? Who do you use? So realtors are a big referral source for me and, repeat clients. So I have repeat clients.
Realtors is actually the one that I've been reaching out to a lot and
Mhm.
trying to acquire new customers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Well, and I love contractors, to be honest with you. Like, we're all speaking the same language. It's like clients, they call you and they say, I want to redo my bathroom, and you're like, okay, so you come over for the bid. Sorry, that wasn't you, that was somebody, some other I did a nerdy impression of a contractor. That wasn't Thaddeus, but anyway, and then you happily come over to their house and you're like, okay, what are we putting in? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, well, is the tile $2 a square foot or is it 15? Like, why are we going to Home Depot or on Saks, right?
Yep.
And so you can't do your job, but it's like that across the whole thing. So I love to educate people that working with a contractor, you got to give your contractor, throw them a bone. You got to throw them a bone. And so it's like, I feel like I speak your guys' language, and I also love to be on that side to make it easy for you guys, because for contractors, it's like, even some contractors like to design, some don't, but not always the design is going to be in what's their wheelhouse,
Yep.
right? And people don't know how much work goes into design time-wise.
Yes.
That running samples, getting reselections, picking up tile and not having it break, all of those things that you guys are doing on the back end, right?
Yep.
You said we're going to talk about that in a minute. Well, not business-wise, but anyways, on a job, all the things you guys are doing, you don't need to be doing that related to design.
Yep.
They think it's all one thing, but it's not. Your job is to install what somebody tells you to install and do it the best way possible, and make it beautiful and execute.
Yep.
Not to do the plan, unless you're a design build contractor, and then you're a different person. So anyway.
Which, and then even on my side, the thing that we notice is I do like being involved in the design phase of things, but it also, that takes up part of our time. And so it's either, all right, how do I start to have to account for that, either in my margin or in billable hours, but we had a project that you had me look at, and I remember we were on the phone and I was like, this is easy. I like this. It makes it a lot more fun when everything's just like, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't have to do the whole like, all right, we're going to go to 4 different showrooms, and then we're going to try and find some stuff, and then you let me know, and then we'll calculate things. It was like, no, here's everything. The customer sees what it is. I see what it is. So then we're also in agreement upon, if I finish the project and they're like, this is not what the picture looks like, it's like, then we have a problem and it's my fault. But it's also, if we finish it and they're like, okay, I don't like it, it's like, we agreed on what it was going to be. So
I am a firm believer that your plans are your agreement with the client. So
Yep.
your agreement, the contractor and the client, that's your agreement, you know. And if you don't have construction documents that have a spreadsheet with a finish schedule that show the item number, I don't want you to say white tile, okay? Because how many white tiles are there? You can get a Dow 100 or whatever, you know, it is, right? And that is very inexpensive for everybody out there, you know, 4x4 whatever tile that, you know, you see in every bathroom in the subway. Or you can get beautiful, you know, tile from, you know, Bedrosian that looks like it's a glazed, it looks hand finished because it has a different blah, 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 right? So white tile doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
So I want a spreadsheet, I want a part number, I want to know where you get it from.
Yep.
And I want to hand things to you guys on a silver platter because I want the client to know what they're going to get too.
Yep.
Because nobody's served. It's not good for me if they say, oh, well, now that's not what I expected. No, my job is to show them what they're going to get,
Yep.
you know? So anyway, I don't know how I got on a tangent, but plans, you know? Anyway, yeah, I want to help everybody.
Yeah.
Get it done.
How much time do you spend on the social media, website, and the podcast on like a weekly basis, monthly basis? Because you've been very consistent over the last several years with social media. Social media is something for me where I'm like, post, I'll get a couple in a row, forget about it, a couple weeks later, right, we need to be doing that, I'm back on it. But like, even as I was prepping for the podcast, it's like you've got consistent posting for the last several years.
Yeah.
What does your schedule look like in going towards all those things?
I have to be super honest that I don't know. I don't know how many hours I spend on each thing individually, and my business coach would probably like it if I did, and my calendar would be a lot nicer. But I am an Aquarius, and I just kind of go with the flow, and I like things to be done. I like things to, keep moving, but I really kind of just go with what I feel like. So I don't know. That's probably not the right answer, but
apparently it works in this situation. It's
yeah.
more consistent than mine. So I'm like, all right, I can't judge.
Well, I have to tell you, I was looking at my website and I was looking at my portfolios and I was like, oh, I need to update. I have a few that I want to put on there. So I went and started tunneling in and I'm like, I did a case study on that one. And I forgot that I had done, one of a salon that I just did. I said, oh, good for me. I said, I got that up, and so I didn't even know that I had done it. So, I mean, I should have a list. I should have a spreadsheet. I've got a ton of spreadsheets, but I just try to be consistent. I post a lot of stories. I repost a lot of stuff because I think social media is hilarious. I would love to have more time to do funny stuff. Like all these people are doing so many funny things. And I'm like, but they have production crews and they have teams and, whatever. It's like, I'm not an influencer. I wouldn't mind being an influencer, but I'm an interior designer.
Yep.
And so I want to see my beautiful designs be built. And that's what I spend most of my time doing. And the marketing is fun for me. And so I have fun with it.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
And then what does it look like in terms of if you have the meetings with the clients? What's that amount of time compared to the amount of time that you're putting into the design work behind the scenes? Because I know you mentioned you've got the initial consultation, but what does the process look like? And then how does that time get allocated? And then I guess kind of to throw one more on the back end of that is how much time do you have to spend on the admin work just for the business in general?
Yeah, so there's a lot of admin work for the business in general. Running your own business, that's why I think a lot of people don't really understand, especially as creators or as artists, like I consider myself an artist, that, there's business to it. And I actually really enjoy the business. And so I get a lot of like, well, Stephanie, you should outsource that and you shouldn't be doing this. And why are you spending time on Canva? And I'm like, I like to spend time on Canva, It's like, no, it's not it's not where where I'm most valuable, but I still like to do some of that stuff. So I have to disconnect a little bit and, I outsource. We have a fractional CFO and, she does all of our accounting. Really? Yeah. And so not once a quarter, every month we look at the overall, what happened last month.
Yeah.
So she inputs everything. And, we take a look at the business holistically and we're like, hey, where do we need to go? What do we need to look at? So our revenue streams are, furnishings is a revenue stream, window treatments is a revenue stream,
Yeah.
and then design time. And design time is finite, right? I have
Yeah.
a design assistant. I have a drafter that's also an interior designer. She does our 3D models, and she's a full NCIDQ, which is a professional certification designer doing commercial, and so just kind of splitting it all up between that, but looking at where my role kind of as the design director is, and not getting into the weeds, right?
Yep.
And so I design while I'm kind of making my documents, though. So I'm designing at the same time as I am, making my presentation, because I'm pulling images in and I'm saying that doesn't work, and throwing it out. And so what I've done over the years is we do 3D models for everything now. So we always do 3D models. And what I do is I have learned to kind of manage that between the team. So we're,
Do you guys do that in-house or do you outsource that?
we do it. Well, she's a contractor, but so I have my list and I give her heads up, like, okay, this project
Mhm.
deadline is here, this project deadline, and keep her updated. And she has access to all of our, shared drives and everything. And so what we do in phases is, I start the project. We do a discovery call, which is free. Then we do a consultation, which is paid, and then generally consultations, the goal is to lead into a project. Then we do a concept presentation, then a design development presentation, and then design is done. And then we go
And
into
what's the difference between the two?
the concept presentation is kind of it's to confirm that all of the information that we've received from the client, we give it back to them in our language, which is a lot of pictures,
Yep.
and say, is this what you were looking for? Is this what you're telling me you want?
Yep.
Is this the feeling you're looking for? Is this the color palette? Are we on the right track? And so the concept presentation is so pivotal, and we never skip it. We don't skip any of our processes. We don't skip the things. But the concept presentation, that's the time for them. They say, Stephanie, no, like absolutely not. Like, where were you when we were having these meetings,
Yeah.
right? Which rarely happens, honestly. I had a client. We were going over the contract, and he says, and I only put one revision in my proposals each phase. So concept presentation, if it's not right, we do a revision, move on. I've honestly never done that. And then design development, I don't give people too many multiple choices. You might get 2 fabrics for your draperies, you might get 2 fabrics for your sofa, but you rarely get 2 full designs. I never give 2 full designs, but that's also written in the contract. And he says, well, what if I don't like it? And I said, you're going to like it. I mean, I'm not trying to be, like over the top like that, but it's like, we take so much care to gather information and to be really clear on the concept presentation. We record those conversations. So the concept presentation is on Zoom. All the team sees it. So when I hand something off to Nicole to do the rendering, she's going to watch the concept presentation. So if I don't give her some piece of information, she sees my interaction with the client, say, hey, remember they said that they really wanted a blah, blah, blah. So we're all in it together,
Yeah.
Anyway. It's the information gathering, but I don't remember what you asked me, and I got really excited about my process.
How the work was split up.
Okay, so I have divided it where I give, so say we do the beginning of the project. So the process is after the consultation, we put out a proposal. I do some of the work to set up the project there, and then I hand it over to Nicole to build the initial model. So she gets started on it. So then when I want to start designing in the model, because I know how to do the drafting too and the 3D, I can mess around with it. I save my own version of it, mess around with it, start doing things, and while I'm designing, and then I can hand it back over to her for her to clean it up and make it nice and presentation worthy. Same thing with the presentation.
Yeah.
I might start and then hand it off to somebody else to continue. And so we bounce back and forth.
That's a super cool process.
I can't not be in the 3D model.
Yeah.
And I can't not be in the mood boards and the presentation
Right.
documents. So it's just a lot of documentation.
Yep.
And we use OneNote. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a Word. It's a Microsoft software, and it is like a notebook. So there's like tabs, as if it was a binder. There's tabs,
Okay.
and then there's pages. And so we have a template already set up. So so our meeting minutes are in there. So it's like having folders, but
Yeah.
it's like a binder. Like, and there's a list down the side
Yeah.
that's like your table of contents. You know.
Yeah.
So Nicole knows what her notes are. The next person can see what I told Nicole to do, what Nicole checked off. You know.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Did you develop that process kind of picking up on different design firms that you saw doing things? Was this a lot of your kind of creation to say, all right, we need to bring structure to this process, or a little bit of both? Or?
It's a little bit of both. So I don't think that I use very much from other design firms that I've worked for. I just really like operations, and it's really fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to also kind of not spend a lot of time making new processes and new procedures to keep things, streamlined. But we have behind the scenes, like YouTube videos of me, like on Loom, recording to somebody what to do, so it's in Asana, this step, 1.3, whatever. And then they can click on it and watch the video of me having done it. Right.
Yeah.
And so everyone knows what to do. But the drive and the need for it is remote working, so even if somebody's here in Arizona, so she's in Tempe, right? Well, we don't need to meet together to do online mood boards, right? Yeah. So it's just the need for technology and the drive for me wanting all of the information in one place. So that's where it's come from.
That's super cool.
Yeah, thanks.
I feel like some people, like you said, they press into the artistic side sometimes, or like there's times where I'll press into more just like I call it production. Right. I've got a lot of production that I need to focus on, and then there's times where that goes by the wayside. Right. And it's understanding that takes care of next year's job. So it's really cool. That's a really cool process on all that. Yeah.
So it's not perfect, right? So there are lapses in marketing and there's lapses in production and, those kind of things.
But when we compare it to, it's like you have a system, and it might not be a perfect system, but totally. Then it's like 9 out of 10 people, it's like, what's your system? And they're like, you tell us what you want and we give something to you.
Well, what's really cool is I have a group of designers that we meet with once a week on Zoom, and I shared my whole thing with them. And I said, here's my notebook that has my SOPs. Here's my Asana, project that we duplicate for everybody. Tell me if this is good. Like, is this what you're doing? Are you doing anything like this? And I just shared it all with them, and they're like, create a course. And I'm like, no, and I was like, that's not what I do, So I'm just like that. Is there a better way to do it? You tell me. This is how I do it, right? And if I'm wasting time or I'm not, having my best systems, then let's talk about it and let's make it better and move on. So
which that allows for scale.
Yes.
A lot quicker as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So to that point, when you're looking at the business, 5-10 years, you're trying to plan what you would like to happen. Do you have an idea of what you would like the business to the business to look like at that point?
No.
Okay.
Remember the whole Aquarius thing, just do whatever, just in the moment. No, I love to be the design director. So I don't love, maybe looking through all of the different hardware pieces and, finding the exact right one. I don't love, ordering samples, because we get samples of everything. What you see online is not potentially what you're going to get. Yep. So being in the weeds in that respect, but being the design director. So my plan is, and my, outlook is, to have these systems be running smooth, and for me to not revise them. Well, this project was different, so we're going to do it this way. It's like, no, that project was different. This is how we do it, right? So to maintain those and just to keep them running smoothly so that I can, be more of a overview and design director.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap this thing up, we've got 5 quick questions for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's the most impactful thing you've learned?
I have learned not to change my processes every time I do a different project, because they all feel different. So anyway.
Yep. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't.
Okay.
I heard someone talk about it just recently, though, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, you should watch it. It's super funny.
Okay. your first character strength that comes to mind.
Fun. I like to have fun. Is that a character strength?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
It can be a character flaw the other way. So
Totally.
I'd say we're going to say yes.
Okay.
If you have 2 weeks, all expenses paid for a vacation, where are you going?
I think I'm going to Spain.
Spain.
Yeah, so I've been to Spain before. I've been to Barcelona a few times, but I haven't like explored, or maybe Portugal. I don't know, somewhere over there. One of those. I haven't explored up north or over on the west coast.
Super cool. And then where can people follow you or reach out to you?
People can follow me and or reach out to me. I'm on all of the social media channels at Stuart Design Co. So it's at, and then Stuart is STUART DESIGNCO. And everyone always says, don't, have your business name be something that you have to spell or explain. But anyway, it just didn't work out to be anything else. So it's Stuart and at Stuart Design Co. And then StuartDesignCo.com is the website. We're on YouTube. We have the podcast, is your favorite interior design podcast. And we'd love to connect with everybody.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, I hope your hammer stays accurate, your Wi-Fi fast, and your work blessed. See everybody.
Good. Awesome.